All right, folks, welcome. Mr. Palia here, just going through some of the basics for working with data. Um, this is an introduction to the class. Assume no knowledge of this. This is should be fun. In order to understand data, it helps to we need to use software really to make pictures and help us understand things better. Typically, data is presented in a table format, and that's just not conducive to understanding what it says. So let's keep going here. And when we talk about introduction to data, so things to note here. When we look at data, here's a table format. Okay, this is a screen clip from Excel. You can see there are row headings here: ID, row ID, accurate episode date, case report date, test report date, specimen date, age group, client gender, etc. Okay, so we have each of these pieces of information. And so what we'll say here is each observation, okay, so we call each row an observation, okay, or a case. So ID number 1 is one observation. Assume that's one person. Okay, in this case, this is COVID-19 data from Ontario. So ID 1, ID 2, ID 3, ID 4, etc. Those are individuals, okay, that have been observed, okay? Each one of these represents a single person. Or, we'll see other types of data, but that's the idea, is that that's an observation or a case. You might call it a case or a row, or you may also call this an individual, okay? Variables, so what we observe are variables, okay? So the columns are variables, and there are different types of variables. We'll talk about these in the next slide, but that's what these represent. So for example, the age group is a variable. The gender is a variable. The case acquisition information is a variable. The outcome is a variable. The reporting provincial health unit is a variable, okay? And what we do is we take a measurement of those variables for each individual, okay? And the measure is the individual cell, okay? So for instance, this person here is a male, okay? No epidemic link is the measurement for case acquisition info. Not resolved means that that case hasn't yet been resolved, which means they still have the disease. And we can see that this happened at the Windsor Essex County Health Unit. Okay, so those are individual measurements of specific variables made on an individual. Okay, you can see some of this data is missing. Okay, that happens. This is a real life data set, so not all the information is always contained. Sometimes we don't have it yet. This data set is updated regularly. And then we'll talk about categorical data. This is all categorical data here. Each of these things are categories. So we'll go to the next slide and we'll discuss different types of data. We got two different types here. So you can see here's the same screen clip, and then I've got a new screen clip here. So types of data, we have categorical data. Okay, there's a little flow chart here. So each variable represents a data, a piece of data. The variables can be categorical or numerical. Okay, categorical meaning they are usually answered in some form of word, okay, or they fit into categories. So these, don't worry about IDs. That's not necessarily like a special idea, but let's focus on age group here. So age group, you can see it falls into certain categories: 20s, 50s, 30s, 40s, less than 20. Okay, so these are specific categories that people are grouped into. So you think about categorical data, you're talking about groups. Specifically, the age group is ordinal, okay, because there is an order, an inherent order among these groups. Okay, so or a hierarchy. So less than 20, 20s, 30s, 40s. Those are categories that people belong to, but there's also some sort of order associated with that. Okay, you may also see that on like a Likert scale type situation. Then we have things like nominal. So nominal means there's no order necessarily. So for instance, the reporting provincial health unit, this would be nominal data. Okay. There is no hierarchy in these things. It's just a classification of someone. You could also put them into, you know, say outcome could also be a nominal. Like typically most of the data that we see that's categorical will generally be nominal. Then we'll talk about numerical data. So numerical data is it's quantitative. It's got a numerical property to it. There's continuous and discrete. Okay, so this here is some data about countries with their population, life expectancies, and GDP per capita. And so this data is numerical. Okay, so the country, each country is an individual, and you can see they've got Afghanistan, which is in Asia, and this is measured in the year 1952. Life expectancy in years, the population of the country, and the GDP per capita of that country. So that's this data set. And let's kind of classify these ideas. So index, we're not really interested in this, just gives us 1, 2, 3. Country is categorical and it is nominal. Okay, there's no inherent hierarchy in these countries. They're listed alphabetically. That's it. Then we've got continent, same thing, categorical because it's you know measured in words, and nominal. Now we have year. Now year in this context can be thought of a couple of different ways. The easy way to think about this is year is numerical, it's a number, and it's discrete. Okay, so that's probably the easiest way to think about it. One could make an argument that each year could be a category. You'll notice that each country is measured several times. So you could make an argument that year is a category, but let's keep things simple. And we'll say that if there's a number here, it's numerical and it is a discrete state. Okay, discrete meaning it's 1952 or 57 or 62 or 67, etc. Like there is no 1952 in a certain amount of days, right? It's just straight up year. Now we have life expectancy, and you can see these are decimal values. This is numerical and continuous. Population, numerical and continuous. There aren't, yes, you're not going to have decimals here for a population, but they aren't discrete states. Like it can take the value of any count, right? These are counting people. Same thing with GDP per capita, numerical and continuous. So that'll be the first recording, and we'll continue to go from here.